100 million years ago, the Earth was divided. While legendary titans ruled the land, the oceans hid a much darker, deadlier secret. On the continents, the Tyrannosaurus Rex was the undisputed king of the dinosaurs, a flawless apex predator. But if that T-Rex stepped into the water, it would become prey. The seas belong to a completely different kind of monster. Enter the Mosasaur, a 50-foot-long sea-dwelling lizard built exclusively for absolute destruction. It was the T-Rex of the deep sea, the most dangerous predator the oceans had ever seen. During the Cretaceous period, global temperatures skyrocketed. The polar ice caps melted completely, raising sea levels to their highest in history. This vast, shallow ocean, known as the Western Interior Seaway, was a warm, sunlit paradise overflowing with life. For millions of years, the oceans had been ruled by dolphin-like ichthyosaurs and the giant, short-necked plesiosaurs. But as the climate changed and oxygen levels fluctuated, these ancient marine dynasties collapsed and went extinct, leaving the throne empty. Nature abhors a vacuum. To fill this empty apex predator role, evolution looked not to the sea, but to the land. These small lizards began venturing into the shallow waters to hunt fish and escape terrestrial dinosaurs. Over millions of years, adapting to a fully aquatic life, their bodies began to radically transform. Their terrestrial legs, no longer needed for walking, flattened and widened, evolving into powerful, webbed flippers. Tyrannosaurus was one of the first true mosasaurs. Though only 3 feet long, it was completely bound to the ocean. In the warm, food-rich waters of the Western Interior Seaway, these marine lizards experienced an evolutionary explosion. They grew massively in size. Because they could no longer crawl onto land to lay eggs like sea turtles, mosasaurs evolved the ability to give birth to live young entirely underwater. Completely free from the land, the mosasaurs quickly diversified, taking over every single apex predatory role in the global oceans. A fully grown mosasaur was an anatomical marvel. Its body was heavily elongated and incredibly muscular, resembling a colossal sea snake. Their tails were deeply flattened and ended in a powerful, downward-pointing shark-like fluke, generating explosive, terrifying speed. But speed was only half the equation. The true horror of the mosasaur lay in its skull. Because of this double-hinged jaw, a mosasaur could open its mouth impossibly wide to swallow massive prey completely whole. And once something went into that mouth, it never came out. Hidden in the roof of its mouth was a second set of teeth. These trapezoid teeth acted like meat hooks, ratcheting struggling prey deeper down the throat like a conveyor belt of death. To locate prey in the dark, murky depths, mosasaurs used a highly advanced, forked tongue, just like modern snakes and monitor lizards. Their diet was incredibly diverse. Nothing in the ocean was safe, not even heavily armored prey. A specialized type of mosasaur called globidins evolved bizarre, spherical teeth, specifically to crush through thick shells. Giant sea turtles, some the size of small boats, were also heavily targeted by these relentless predators. With a bite force of over 10,000 pounds, a mosasaur could effortlessly shear off the flipper of a giant turtle. But the ultimate battle for the Cretaceous oceans was against the Ginsu sharks, terrifying predators measuring up to 25 feet long. While the shark relied on constant swimming and shark bites, the mosasaur used its massive tail to launch devastating, high-speed ambush attacks. However, the most dangerous enemy a mosasaur could face was another mosasaur. Cannibalism was incredibly common. Fossil evidence shows that mosasaurs frequently engaged in brutal face-biting battles over territory and mating rights. To become the perfect stealth killer, the mosasaur evolved an ingenious camouflage system called countershading. Conversely, its back was dark, allowing it to blend seamlessly into the pitch-black abyss when viewed from above. However, despite their absolute dominance in the water, mosasaurs were reptiles, meaning they still had to breathe air. They would hang suspended in the dark water column, holding their breath, waiting patiently for a shadow to cross the sun. Above the surface, large flying reptiles like Tyrannosaurus would skim the waves, unaware of the monster lurking just below. With a powerful thrust of its tail, the mosasaur could launch its multi-ton body completely out of the water to snatch birds from the sky. By the end of the Cretaceous period, mosasaurs had spread to every single ocean on the planet. They were the undisputed apex predators of the deep. As the Late Cretaceous progressed, mosasaurs faced new challenges in the shifting, unpredictable oceans. They shared these waters with Elasmosaurus, a bizarre plesiosaur with a neck longer than its body and tail combined. Elasmosaurus was a stealth fisher, using its tiny head to ambush schools of fish before they noticed its massive body. But against a 50-foot mosasaur, the long neck of the Elasmosaurus was a fatal vulnerability. The oceans were also filled with predatory fish, like Styphactinus, a terrifying 14-foot monster with a bulldog face. Known as the furious fish, Styphactinus would swallow prey whole, sometimes so large it died from its own greed. Yet, to a giant mosasaur, even the terrifying Styphactinus was just another meal in the endless food chain. Mosasaurs also hunted at the surface, targeting flocks of flightless diving birds, like Hesperornis. Hesperornis were excellent swimmers, but they stood no chance against an ambush from the abyss. To survive in this brutal ocean, younger, smaller mosasaurs had to hide in shallow, dense mangrove swamps. In these shallows, they were safe from their giant, cannibalistic relatives, feeding on crabs and small fish. But as they grew, their instincts drove them out into the open ocean, where the ultimate prize awaited. The open ocean required immense stamina. Mosasaurs possessed a highly advanced metabolism, allowing them to swim continuously. They were warm-blooded reptiles capable of maintaining a constant body temperature even in the freezing deep trenches. This metabolic advantage allowed them to hunt day and night, never needing to stop or rest. But as the Cretaceous period reached its absolute peak, the stable world of the mosasaur began to fracture. The tectonic violence triggered massive underwater earthquakes, creating devastating tsunamis that shattered the shallow seaways. The warm, shallow inland seas began to drain rapidly as the continents shifted, shrinking the mosasaur's empire. Competition for food became desperate, triggering a wave of hyper-violent cannibalism among the remaining giants. Yet, as the final hour of the Cretaceous approached, the mosasaur remained the undefeated king of the global deep. 66 million years ago, the golden age of the marine reptiles came to a sudden, violent, and cataclysmic end. The 6-mile-wide asteroid slammed into the shallow seas of the Yucatan Peninsula with the force of 1 billion atomic bombs. The impact triggered a global mega-tsunami, creating a wall of water over 300 feet high that violently swept across the oceans. Deep underwater, mosasaurs felt the immense shock waves. The pressure alone ruptured their internal organs. The impact blasted billions of tons of sulfur and soot high into the stratosphere, completely blocking out the sun. Earth was plunged into a global impact winter. Temperatures plummeted, and photosynthesis completely stopped. The collapse of the food chain was absolute. First the plankton died, then the fish, leaving the giant predators with nothing to eat. Desperate for survival, the remaining mosasaurs turned on each other, fighting brutal battles over the last scraps of meat. But cannibalism could only delay the inevitable. Within a few thousand years, a last mosasaur took its final breath. Their massive body settled onto the dark, silent seafloor, consumed by deep-sea crabs and primitive sharks. Over millions of years, the sediment covered them. The age of the great marine reptiles was buried in the stone. Millions of years passed. The continents continued to move, and the ancient western interior seaway completely dried up, turning into dry land. Then, in 1764, in a dark underground limestone quarry in Maastricht, Netherlands, workers made an incredible discovery. At first, scientists were completely baffled. Some thought it was a whale, others believed it was a colossal crocodile. But Cuvier realized the truth. This was a giant, predatory marine lizard, related to modern monitor lizards and snakes. He named it the Mosasaur. Today, modern paleontology uses advanced CT scans to look inside these ancient skulls, revealing secrets locked for millions of years. We now know that mosasaurs were the ultimate evolutionary comeback story. From tiny, vulnerable land lizards hiding in the ferns, they transformed their bodies to conquer the global deep. For 30 million years, they ruled without a rival, putting an end to the age of sharks and older marine reptiles. They evolved double-hinged jaws to swallow giant prey, specialized teeth to crush iron-hard shells, and hyper-advanced camouflage to strike from the shadows. They were the apex of their lineage, a biological masterclass in adaptation. Even the terrifying Tyrannosaurus Rex on land could not match the global reach and absolute dominance of the mosasaur. They were not defeated by rivals, nor outsmarted by other predators. They were stopped only by a cosmic apocalypse. Though they are gone, their mark on Earth's history is indelible, locked inside the deep layers of the ancient stone. They remind us that no matter how powerful a dynasty becomes, the Earth can rewrite the rules of survival in a single heartbeat. The Mosasaur, the ultimate terror of the ancient deep,